you're not going to have the age structure or the genetics everywhere for a deer to become a 200-inch deer.
No. And beyond genetics, though, like you said, like there's going to have to be an abundance of resources too for them to be able to reach that maximum, because the antler growth is the last thing that the body's going to denote energy to, right? Or going to promote, or going to send energy off to do, right? Energy and resources. The majority of it's going to be building weight, putting on the weight that it's going to need to be able to survive for the winter, or just the maintenance of it, the maintenance of its body. And this is a discussion I had with the retired deer program administrator in a couple podcasts ago, talking about this, and he brought this point up. Now, on face value, if you look at the number of deer that are being brought into the Buckeye Big Buck Club, right, the number appears to be going up, right? So that on face value is like, oh, so that must mean we have better bucks. He's like, however, though, if you compare that to the number of bucks that are harvested, right, and you do the ratio between the bucks that enter the club versus the bucks that are harvested, and you go and you do a look back over the years, you're going to start to see a decreasing trend in the percentage of bucks harvested that make it into the Buckeye Big Buck Club. And he's like, this is a sign that our population, or that our deer herd, is starting to decline, especially when it comes to antler growth. And he goes back, and, him and I, now granted, there's probably a few factors that go into this, right? Maybe some of the areas are starting to get a little bit more mature, so they don't have the typical nutrition that they've had, or just simply there's too many mouths on the landscape, and there's not enough nutrition for them to be able to know that resource to. It's still one of the reasons as to why they're talking about, we need to start removing deer from our herd. Like,
Absolutely.
we need you to help. We need
Yeah.
hunters to help with that, right? So I hear those points, and I get that. And what you said, like, that just kind of sparked that whole little conversation I had with him, because it was a valid point that you brought about the Vermont deer, and is that they do need to know resources, because they could be able to survive the winter. Canadian deer, their deer are bigger than ours, body wise, are bigger than ours, because once again, they need to be able to survive the winter.
Yeah.
Um, but it's it's now, I understand there's some people who manage their properties. They have the money to do so, and they're not growing deer, but they're growing deer, right?
Yes.
Um, and it's I just heard Josh Bomar talking that he feeds his deer alfalfa, cracked corn. Like, he actually has like a feeding program that he does for his deer. Okay, you will be able to grow a lot of big deer that way, because you are giving them the resources that they need to be able to reach that. I understand, and I understand your point where you're trying to get there. However, let's look at you and me, or your average hunter. Not so much. We're not going out there and dropping that out, or we're on property that, they're like, they're kind of limited on what they want us to do. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get around that, and I understand there's different approaches to take on that. So I don't want to pigeonhole it just to that. There was just one example of, yeah, that you want to grow deer like that. This is how it's done.
It costs dollar bills.
Yeah. And well, he said this. He goes, well, then say, he's like, so this one farm, I had a lot of big deer. Like, I've, been my feeding program, what I've been doing, all this stuff. I've been growing big deer on this. I sell it to a guy, till I was done. I was like, I just didn't have the time to go out there anymore. I was just whatever the reason was, right? I sell it to him, and this guy gets a hold of me. He's like, where's all these big deer at that you're talking about? He's like, well, are you doing this? Or are you doing that? He's like, no. Back to that point, what they not only do they need the genetics, but they also need the abundance of resources for them to be able to reach that type of caliber on more than average, right? There's going to be a few outliers that are going to be able to hit that, just because, but generally speaking, they need not only the genetics to get there, but they need the abundance of resources to denote to that type of growth. So, and time, you know,
Yes.
and time
Yep.
to get there.